But, but Mark, before I give you the microphone, I have to do something before we get started. If you'll allow me, I would like to imitate you for just 10 seconds. Okay. You ready?
Yeah, sure.
Your life tells a story, and there's someone out there who needs to hear it.
Ah, wonderful. Très bien, très bien, très bien. Incroyable.
Hi, Mark.
Hi, Patty Pat.
Thank you so much for joining me on the Break Time with Patty show. And how are you today?
I am blessed and highly favored. It is good to see a nice, bright, sunshiny day out here in central Georgia, where the temperatures might not be quite the same as Montreal in Quebec, in that at night it might go down to 34 degrees Fahrenheit, but by day as high as 66. So we get a 30 degree shift. And today it's bright sunshine, warm, not a cloud in the sky. And all I can see are squirrels and chipmunks and deer. Hopefully no snakes in my backyard in this little area called Lizella, Georgia, out in the country where it's peace and quiet.
Wow. That sounds like heaven to me right now.
Well, we are thankful. My wife, Andrea, and I are very thankful. We got this place about 09, almost 12 years ago. And it's been our home after having lived in New York for over 20 years. The atmosphere is different. Life is slower in Georgia. And as we get older, slower appeals to us.
Yes, wonderful. So I feel so blessed actually that you're here with us. And let me introduce you without delay, because whoever is watching us is missing out from not knowing who you are.
I'll let you do your thing, Patty.
Yes, in my humble opinion. My dear friend, first thing, Mark Brown is an award-winning international speaker, but not just any speaker. He is the, brace yourself, 1995 world champion of public speaking.
Merci.
Yes, de rien. Since then, he has delivered more than 3,500 presentations to more than 1.7 million people on all 5 continents. Mark has also earned the coveted designation of Certified Speaking Professional from the National Speakers Association and is known to be one of the most popular inspirational speakers in the world. He is a consultant, a coach, a mentor who helps organizations, major corporations, and individuals excel through his leadership, performance, and communication programs. Number 2, Mark is the co-author of the life-altering book, The Speaker's Edge, which I just received on Amazon. Thank you, Amazon. Very excited to start reading it. I have not had the chance yet, but you can be sure that's on my list of things to do. He has been featured in the New York Times Men's Health, on CNN Headline News, and even had his own PBS special, Words Count, with Mark Brown, which was nominated for an Emmy Award. Mark is the co-host of the Unforgettable Presentations podcast with his best friend, Darren Lacroix, who I actually already interviewed. In fact, as soon as I stopped our recording, Darren blurted out, "You have to interview Mark Brown." And he went on to give me his coordinates. And I was too happy to oblige. And lucky for us all, Mark gracefully agreed to join us today. Finally, number 3. And most importantly, Mark is a man of God, a husband to his lovely wife, Andrea, for 39 years, almost 40, and a proud father of 3 children, Andreen, Joel, and David. Woo! Okay, I think I've talked enough. But Mark, before I give you the microphone, I have to do something before we get started. If you'll allow me, I would like to imitate you for just 10 seconds. Okay. You ready?
You sure?
Your life tells a story, and there's someone out there who needs to hear it.
Ah, wonderful. Très bien, très bien, très bien. Incroyable.
Merci, merci. And I strongly believe that your story needs to be heard, Mark. So without delay, can you tell us a little bit about yourself as a little boy, a teenager, and a young adult? What was it like to be in his shoes?
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Patty, for that wonderful introduction. And I'm happy to share my life with your viewers and listeners, your audience, your friend, your community. As some may not know, I grew up in Jamaica, the island, not Jamaica, Queens, New York. I mean, if I really want to get really Jamaican, I can talk really Jamaican if you want. You understand? So I'm a Jamaican man. But I grew up in Jamaica in a family of five, mother, dad, mother, father, older brother, younger sister. And I had a wonderful childhood. My mother and father met in church in the 1950s, and my grandfather, mother's father, was a Baptist minister. So my family was a Christian family in a very, very conservative nuclear environment where everybody was family. You know, the culture in America now, North America now, is very different than it was 60 years ago when I was born. And yes, I am 60 years old, but I look good. Thanks to my wife, Andrew's wonderful cooking and her love of all these years. It was so structured, so comfortable, so loving, so welcoming. I didn't know anybody who was divorced, Patty, until I was 16 years old. Oh. That was a culture I grew up in. So family was important, loving family. My dad was a land surveyor, my mom was a school teacher, and she was the epitome of a school teacher. She loved everyone. She taught whenever she could. And as a child in Jamaica, in summer holidays, we said holidays in Jamaica, not vacation, as kids, in elementary school or primary school, our house on our street was the central location. It was the hub. All the kids came to our house to play games, have fun. And my mother, being a school teacher, was home in the summertime. She'd make sandwiches and lemonade and treats for the kids. And one vivid memory I have, Patty, is that after lunch, we all had to clean up, but nobody could go outside and play until each of us learned one Bible verse. Of course, those who are smart would pick John chapter 11, verse 35, which says, Jesus wept. Because he wanted to go out and play. And it was just our environment. Our home was the hub. My mother, her spirit, her grace and her life filled that place. And I learned so much from mom and dad. But in the late 1970s, my father made a critical decision at the age of 47, and he chose to leave Jamaica and start over again from scratch in the USA, which was a big yank of the wheel because he had a wife, 3 teenage kids, including myself. And I left Jamaica right after I finished high school. I was 18 years old. And I got to tell you, asked about my childhood, clearly I had a wonderful childhood. You mentioned my teen years. Teen years for me were also quite formative. You know, in our culture today, we say the formative years, when they're born to when they're 8, 9, 10, till middle school, 8 years. But for me, all the way up to 18 was for me very formative. And I'll explain that. I began to play sports when I was 14. Football was my game of choice. Of course, in the Caribbean, you'd say soccer here. In the Caribbean, we say football because you use your foot to kick a ball, which makes sense to me, right? But I played junior high school football. I was team captain. I learned about leadership. I went on to play for the senior team for 3 years. I ended up as team captain, as also what we call in America, I'm not sure what it's in Canada, they call it the student body president. It was called the head boy at the boys' school I attended. What was funny also, with my mom being a teacher, education runs 5 generations deep in my family. So in my elementary school, from age 5 until age 11, my grandmother taught there. Therefore, I could get away with nothing. High school is grade 7 to graduation. So it's junior and senior in one building. An all-boys school, 2,000 boys. And my mom's sister, my aunt, taught English at my high school, which meant I could get away with nothing. So I learned, somebody's always watching you. I learned about discipline, playing sports, being part of a team. I learned about leadership back in the 1970s. So the big yank came and dad said, we're going to move. And he sent me to New York. At the time, he had to close out all his affairs, sell his house, get rid of his equipment, everything, and start from scratch. He could only afford to give me $40 US. So I came to North America, to the USA, to the Bronx, New York, with 2 suitcases, $40, and a naive dream of a better life, not knowing enough to be scared or fearful about starting out on my own, because I had family. And this is important, Patty, for everyone who's watching and listening to this. Family, hopefully your family is like mine. love on your family, appreciate your family. My dad's younger sister, his youngest sister actually, agreed to take me in. She was divorced with two small children under 10 that had some adjustment problems. We found out later some mental problems because one of her kids had been in a group home for like 35 years. Has her daughter. But she had a small apartment, 2 bedrooms, 2 twin beds, her daughter, her son in one room, and she be in the other room by herself. She gave me her daughter's twin bed, and she and her daughter went to her room and slept on a mattress and box spring, no headboard, no bed frame, no footboard. But she was willing to do that for me because I was family. And I understand culture in your homeland of Haiti. I've had many friends who have come to America from Haiti, and I've noticed they'll have 8, 9 people in an apartment because family says, familia, come and live with me. And we support each other until somebody gets their feet under them and they can move out and they can move on. And that was the atmosphere I grew up in. And that was my experience in New York. The blessing was, and I count myself truly blessed, I landed in America, went to live with my aunt in the Bronx, and the very next day, she took a day off for work to help me find a job, any kind of job for a high school graduate without a college degree. And I got a job at a local bank that was merely 4 blocks from our apartment. I got that job within 24 hours. It was 1980, at a time when not everyone was getting a job. I saw people on the street corner, hanging on to a bottle of liquor with a brown bag and saying, I got no work, I got no job. But God got me a job the very next day in a bank. And that also began my journey of independence while my dad and mom moved to Florida. A sister came to live in New York. My brother was finishing university. And eventually our entire family moved to the USA. And of course, you move to a new country, it's a new experience. I think you understand that yourself also. But there's an old Jamaican song, well, not Jamaican song, but a popular song called Jamaica Farewell by a singer named Harry Belafonte. Now, perhaps your millennial listeners will have no clue who this man is, but he was truly a legend, one of the first African-American or Black actors and singers to really make a name for himself in North America. And he sings a song called Jamaica Farewell, and perhaps for some, the chorus might sound familiar. It goes like this. Sad to say I'm on my way, won't be back for many a day. My heart is down, my head is turning around. I got to leave a little girl in Kingston town. The funny thing,
sorry.
Maddie, I did that. I left a little girl in Kingston town, and that girl was Andrea. Yes, true story. I know. It's so sweet. But it's a true story. And 2 years later, I returned to Jamaica in 82. We got married for a total of 2 weeks, had to leave her, come back to the USA, and it took her 10 months to get a visa to join me in New York. Perhaps the worst 10 months of my life, being away from her all that time. But she finally joined me in 1992. And I met her when I was 16 years old, like my dad did to my mom, in church. At a small Baptist Christian church in Kingston. I met her there. We share a faith in Jesus Christ together, and we've been together ever since. In 2 months from this recording, we'll be married for 40 years. Wow. And I do not know where the time went. We were young, we had nothing. She came to America. We really were just a poor couple. I got a job, though, working as a computer programmer, analyst, trainee from scratch. And I used to work on old mainframe computers, IBM style, back in the 1970s and 80s. And it's interesting. Along the journey, I had, a few job changes. We had our kids. And I went to work at Reader's Digest in 1992 in the fall. It was the year my mother had passed away after an illness. And that story is a long one. I'm not bore you with that story today. But my being at Reader's Digest was an unexpected blessing because I've been told on several occasions, Reader's Digest will not hire anyone who does not have at least a graduate degree, a bachelor's degree in science, BS, BA, whatever. I have a high school diploma. But somehow a friend of mine got my resume, said, listen, I see a job that you could do. Give me the resume. and I'll put it in for you. I said, fine. I met him on an off ramp on the highway and handed him my resume to bring it into work. And they chose to interview me for a job as a computer analyst in their system, and I went through a whole day of interviews. I was there all day, several interviews. And I remember the second to last interview I had, the department head said, Mark, I have a question. I'm not quite clear on your educational background. I don't see a degree on your resume. And I told him, yeah, you don't, because I came to America at 18. I had $40. I had to start to work. I had planned to go to college at night, but I got married. And my wife and I discovered, by God's grace, not by our planning, that she was with child. And we had made a plan that should she ever get pregnant, she would not work. She would make sure to nurture our children, and I do all I can to provide for the family. Because she was even offered a job with a telephone company, but when we found out she was pregnant, we said, no, you're pregnant. We need you to do what you need to do best. And she was our kids' first teacher for all of them. And he said, okay, I understand. I thought, well, after the full day is gone, the job is no longer mine. But then I was called upon to meet with the senior vice president of IT. We talked for 20 minutes, conversation, regular guy, and I walked away. And I thought, well, it was fun, but I don't have the qualification. Why'd I even come here? But anyway, I got a phone call the following day. Human Resources called and told me, Mr. Brandt was impressed with you, but we're not going to offer you the position you applied for. I said, I understand. He said, no. We want to offer you a job as a senior analyst at a higher salary. Would that be okay with you? I said, let me think about it. Of course it would be okay. But that's how I began my career at Reader's Digest. But what happened, why that was important was I went to work at Reader's Digest on the 7th of December, 1992, on a Monday. On the 10th, a Thursday, they had a Toastmasters meeting. And the funny thing is, I heard about it because the gentleman who told me, he and I had worked together at a bank previously. And when he said Toastmasters, a memory came to mind, Patty. See, one of my uncles in Jamaica had come to New York one day, and he came to visit. And on his lapel, he had a strange gold pin that I didn't know what it was. Had a big T on it. So what is that? I said, it's Toastmasters. That's the old Toastmasters logo. Anyone can do a Google search or a Bing search or whatever kind of search you want, DuckDuckGo, and look at Toastmasters pin and look for images. You'll see an old gold pin with a blue T in the middle. That was the old pin he had on. He told me what it was, Toastmasters, and I had forgotten about it. Then I heard Toastmasters. My uncle does that. Well, I can go to a meeting. And I went to the first meeting, and I was completely and utterly intimidated by the caliber of speakers that were there. Because even though I'd been in the country for, 12 years at the time, I'm still in the back of my mind, I'm still, a Jamaican guy with an accent. I'm still the guy with no college degree who's like I got an imposter thing going. If they ever find out how much I don't know, how will they accept me? So for those who are not Toastmasters, your Toastmasters journey begins with what's called an icebreaker speech. It's your first speech. You give that between 4 and 6 minutes, and you've broken the ice. You've broken your duck. You're, for those who like cricket, and you're okay. You're in now. You're part of the team. And most people will visit a club once or twice, and then agree to do an icebreaker. I became a guest in that club that first Thursday. We met on Thursdays, and I was a guest for 4 months. Before that's how on Toastmaster-ish I was back in 1992. But eventually I joined the club in April of 1993. I gave my icebreaker speech, and I had no designs on becoming a world champion. Because my concern was my growing family, having a good career, and playing my sport. So that's the kind of the long, short background of how I caught my way to Toastmasters back in 93. And of course, I won the title in 95. And since then, I've been teaching, coaching speakers, giving keynotes around the world, and sharing my gift the best way I can. That's a long, short story of the background.
Very thorough. I loved it. Thank you so much for sharing. A lot of what you said resonated with me because, of course, I'm a child of immigrants that moved from Haiti to Canada in the 1970s. And they actually had all my uncles and aunts come from Haiti, either to Canada or in the US. So I know all that. We shared a lot of beds with a lot of family members. So that really touched me when you said that. So thank you for sharing so much of your journey. So now actually that brings me to one of the questions I wanted to ask you. I wanted to talk to you about the World Championship winning speech, A Second Chance, just for a moment, please.
Sure.
And without sharing any spoilers, at home you'll have to go watch it yourself. Here's the link. It was a masterpiece. A masterpiece. So powerful and inspiring and hilarious. I will say no more. I'll let you go watch it for yourself. But can you share with us, Mark, why did you decide to start competing? Because at this point now, you're just a member. You did your icebreaker and you're attending all those meetings. What on earth made you decide to start competing?
That, Patty, is one of the most interesting parts of my story. My late father, always told me, truth is stranger than fiction. What I will tell you now is not fiction. This is truth. I had been giving a few speeches. I was not someone who signed up me, every meeting. Between the spring of 1993 and the February of 1994, talking about 10, 11 months, I only gave 6 speeches. That's one every 2 months, roughly. And on contest day, our club contest took place, and I had agreed to play the role of the target speaker or test speaker or model speaker. And for non-Toastmasters, an individual gives a speech for 7 minutes or so. And in the evaluation contest, Toastmasters compete to give the best evaluation that serves the model speaker so that he or she can be a better speaker. I agreed to be that model speaker so I can learn how to be a better presenter. 2 hours before our contest, I got a phone call from my club mentor. Her name was Skip McCarthy. And we had scheduled 2 contests, the evaluation contest and the international speech contest. She said, Mark, Dennis is a contestant in the international speech contest, but he found out a few minutes ago he has to attend a business meeting. See, Reader's Digest Toastmasters met at lunchtime, not after hours. We had a solid 1 hour meeting. We got everything done in an hour, but that was our contest day. She then said, I know you are assigned to be the model speaker. Would you be willing to change roles and instead enter in the international contest as a contestant? And of course, being Jamaican, my answer was, yeah, man, no problem, man. Now, mind you, I had no idea what I was doing. I had not written a speech. I had 3 bullet points on a 3x5 card. So there was no flow. It was just very extemporaneous. To my surprise, I won my club contest and I didn't have any idea what that meant. I said, good, I won the contest. That was fun. I was told, no, you got to do another contest next. What next? I said, area. What's area? Area is above division. So when is that going to take place? Tonight. I said, what? Yes. So I competed in the area. And next thing I know, I'm going on to division. And then from division, I go to district. And I went to district, still did not have a scripted speech, but I gave my speech at district. And the difference was I didn't have 15, 20 people. There was over 200. And they laughed at my bad jokes. So much so, I found out, I saw the red light and I said, oh, I can end my speech. And I'll end my speech. And one guy was waving at me in the back, said, Mark. And I closed my speech out and he told me he thought it was overtime. I didn't really think about it. I had no designs on a contest trophy. I was going along for a ride, Patty. I was named the winner of the District 46 district contest in 94. And I found out I had spoken for 7 minutes and 29 seconds. For non-Toastmasters, what that means is you are allowed as much as 7 minutes and 30 seconds. Anything more, you're disqualified. Had I had one big yawn or one deep breath or a sneeze, I probably would have been disqualified. But that led me to what was called a regional back then. It's called semifinals now in Canada, in St. John, New Brunswick. I had to change my speech for that one, which I did. I kind of scripted it a little bit, and I won that contest. And lo and behold, without knowing what I was doing, I was in the 1994 World Championship in Louisville, Kentucky in August of 94. Finally, I said, okay, I got to write a script. And I got some help from people who had, in our club in New York and in New York City, and they encouraged me. And I wrote a script that was pretty good, I thought. And I went to the finals with my wife. Angelina and Joel were small. David was in her womb. She was August. He was born October. So she was 7 months pregnant when we went to Louisville, Kentucky. And I gave the best I could, but it was not good enough to win. And I understood that. My son, not so much. Joel, he was 7, he was crying. And I was trying to console him. And the man literally walked into my life and transformed it. His name is David Brooks, the 1990 world champion. He told me he thought I was good and said, if you need help, here's my card, which I took. Following day, I got home, dropped my bags and called David Brooks. Said, David Brooks, yes, Mark Brown here. Do you know who I am? He said, Mark, I met you yesterday. I said, Dave, you promised to help, will you? And he said, yes. And that began an old school mentoring coaching process whereby he in Texas would coach me in New York by phone and fax. For the millennial audience, a fax machine is about this big. It resembles a small print. You know what? Just Google it, ask Siri or ask Google. But he was my mentor by phone and fax. And with his help, in 95, I kind of went through my club area division myself. I pinged him for district, worked on that speech together. I won my district. Went to my region semifinal, and I won that as well and qualified for the finals one more time. Now, back in those days, in the 90s, you had to have 3 speeches. Now you only need 2. We had to have 3. 1 through district, change it for semifinals, change it again for the finals. The idea being everyone has at least 1 good speech in them. To be a world champion back then, you had to prove it not once, not twice, but 3 different times. Wow. And I spent 6 weeks on a speech I knew was going to win for me, but it didn't feel right. In all my rehearsals, all my tests with all my audiences, it fell flat and it was not good enough. And I recall writing David a letter and faxing it to him saying, it's not my best work. I said, you, my audience, my family, and my God deserve my best, and this is not it. Now, contest day is August 18, 1995. August 1st, I changed lanes and go back to an old speech I had given in the year before at my semifinal and reworked it and delivered that speech called A Second Chance in the finals of 95. Here's an interesting thing. That final speech that I gave was only seen by my family, by my coach, David Brooks, and by my staging coaches, Robert and Randy Gedalia from New York City, who were both National Speakers Association bigwigs in New York City. Wonderful couple. They've now since passed on. And they saw it. David saw it. And my family saw it. Nobody else in the audience saw that speech on that day. And I delivered it. I had fun with it. And the audience responded wonderfully well. The judges agreed, and I became the world champion. You said you liked the speech, Patty. It was based upon an experience I had with my kids back in 93, watching a Disney cartoon. I'll say that much about it. I encourage your viewers to go and watch it. Yes. And funny enough, a friend of mine in California sent me a package in the mail this week. And in the package, she sends me a clipping of the photograph of me getting my trophy, August 1995. That's the actual clipping under plastic. I didn't have hair back then either, but it called it, it says, Orator pulls out and stops in victory, which is really nice. That was a San Diego Union Tribune article on that day in 1995 when I won the trophy. The journey to the trophy was wonderful. I became a world champion, but then it only began. Because since then, as you said to your audience earlier, I have traveled around the world. I've been blessed to speak on 5 continents. I've been coaching speakers for several years. I've been collaborating with other speakers like Darren LaCroix. I've been giving keynotes all over. And I am just thankful that the gift I have, I can use in a way that serves others well. And that's what has happened because of that speech. But since you mentioned A Second Chance specifically, the biggest blessing is this. I put it on YouTube a few years ago. Mm-hmm. And as recently as a week and a half ago, I've received comments on that video that is, 27 years old. Mm-hmm. So hopefully we have teased your audience enough to want to go online and look for Mark Brown, world champion speaker, or Mark Brown winning speech. And you'll probably put the actual link in your show notes, I would think, so they can find it. But yeah, it was all based upon a true story of my wife, Andrea, and me, when we sat with our kids to watch a Disney cartoon one night, and what I talk about actually happened. Yes. I saw one scene, I rewound it and said, aha, Here is a lesson for my kids, never dreaming it'll be a lesson for millions to hear.
Yes. Oh, yes, absolutely. But that speech moved me. Like, I watched it many times. I don't know if you know this, but I'm a bit of a Toastmasters obsessed human.
You're a junkie? You're a Toastmasters junkie?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I binge watched all the last championships in the last few decades. And I was also in August 2021, and I actually binge watched the entire contest. I would have never had time if I was not sick. And this is when I saw the Verdis and the Daryl Paces and the Roger Caesar. So it's fascinating. And I just joined Toastmasters in May 2021.
Oh, wow.
And it's changed my life so much. I'm so passionate about it that this is the reason why I've even started a YouTube channel. Actually, I have two YouTube channels. One to document my Toastmasters journey and one for my spiritual journey. Because I don't feel like they mix the worlds too much, and I want to give what people want depending on my platform. But yes, actually, I'd like to talk about impact, if you don't mind, impact and influence, because I just saw something else that you shared at the spring conference of 2021, and it moved me so much that, and now let me tell you a little bit about this.
Certainly.
And so I was watching your keynote. It was called Stronger Together.
Yes.
I know you've given a lot of presentation. I'm not sure if you even remember, but
no, that one is a fairly new one. I wrote that one in 2020, so it's fairly new to me. Yes.
So you actually moved me to tears so much. Like, my daughter, she was remote. She's a remote worker. She's 19 years old, so she studies at school. She studies at home and she works at home. And she came up to see me. Are you okay, Mom? Like, I was like, oh, I was like really moved. I won't say more. Like, I will encourage you to go watch it as well. But can you share with us what you feel like a person of impact is? Because you just mentioned how your speech that you delivered in 1995 is still moving people so many years later. Yeah. And I thought maybe perhaps you can share the story of your beautiful daughter Andrene's with us, please.
Well, in terms of impact, all of us in our lives have experiences that can impact someone else. The issue I have found, Patty, is that we all don't realize that. And here's one. I have several Mark-isms that I adhere to. One is, one man's mundane is another man's magnificent. Now, I say the word man, not for male, but for human being. And also the word man and mundane and magnificent has the M alliteration. So please don't be upset if I don't seem inclusive. It was not meant to be, to be insensitive. It just rings well. One man's mundane is another man's magnificent. What I mean is, our lives we're so close to our own lives, we fail to see the impact our story may have on somebody else. Case in point, I know that 40 years ago, I left Jamaica with, was it 42 years ago, with $40 in my pocket and 2 suitcases to go to America. That was my life. Yeah. But to most people, they say, what? You were 18 with $40, new life, new country? That's amazing. How did you do that? But because I'm so close to it, I don't realize the impact on other people. So impact comes when we genuinely tell our stories, especially if we understand that our stories have a universal appeal and impact. The stories that I tell have been effective on 5 continents because they aren't Jamaican stories or New York stories. They're human stories. And when you and I can have an emotional connection to the audience, you said you were kind of getting sweaty eyeballs because you felt a connection. You talked about how, yes, I understand with family coming to live with you. I understand the concept of family loving each other. That's it. When we share our stories and have an emotional connection, a universal message, we can have impact, especially when our intent and our purpose is not to show off or to brag or say how good we are, but to truly provide value to those who hear what we have to say. So to my fellow Toastmasters, I say, yes, you will give speeches and presentations, but don't forget, even a contestant, look at a judge's guide and ballot. In a judge's guide, they want to make sure there is some value and meaning for the audience. So we will have impact if our intention is not just so much to tell them how good we are or what we've done, me, I, but in some way, use our stories to inspire, encourage, impact, and touch our audience as well. And you mentioned one of the stories I talked about, my daughter, my eldest, my firstborn, Andrene, and how telling her story impacted you. We never know when something that we say has particular personal meaning to somebody else. And my daughter Andrine is now almost 38. I call her my princess. She and I either speak by phone or talk by text or messenger every day. She's the one who got me to do Weight Watchers back in 10 years ago. She was the one who got me to start going to Orange Theory Fitness to keep myself healthy twice a week. I mean, she's amazing. And she's also one of my heroes because several years ago, she was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, which she is battling every single day. She still goes to Orange Theory. She still does yoga. She still stays physically fit. I look at her pill box and she has several pills to take every single day. And my heart cries because I'm thinking, darling, dad should be the one taking all the pills, not the daughter, and her husband, Roland, is a wonderful blessing also. I remember when she said how they finally diagnosed her because she'd been sick for, she's had issues since she was 16 years old. And they finally diagnosed what she had. And she said, oh, okay. She told her boyfriend, Roland, sat him down and said, listen, MS is serious. It is a disease that can cost you your life. I can end up in a wheelchair and it's really debilitating. I could be in a wheelchair. You don't need this, do you? I'm paraphrasing. And this young man looked at my princess and he said, well, if you end up in a wheelchair, I'll just push you wherever you want to go. And I said, keep her. And Andrea calls him her son-in-love. Roland is her son-in-love. Yeah. And Andrine, not only that, she would do the annual MS walk in Washington, D.C., and she would raise money for MS research. I mean, one year, I think it was 2017, she was doing the walk, and Andrea and I were 18, on our way to Paris, to Marseille for a Toastmasters conference. And we did the walk ourselves in Georgia. And a Toastmaster friend all the way in California found out about this walk. And she said, it's a 3-hour time difference. I won't be there, but I'll put my money in and I will walk for your daughter. Mm. That's Toastmasters, friends. A Toastmaster 3,000 miles away said, I will walk for her. And she did. She put some money down. And my daughter wanted to raise $3,000. And my daughter's impact on people's lives was such that when it was all done, she raised $9,000 for multiple sclerosis research. Mm. And I am so proud of my daughter. And the whole Stronger Together piece was how Toastmasters and her friends and all of us together helped her triple her goal. Mm. And I will say this in terms of being stronger together. Toastmasters, we have a wonderful opportunity right now. Mm-hmm. I know the last 2 years have been awful. Oh, we couldn't get to meet in person. It was terrible. But here's a blessing. We had the chance to visit clubs all over the world from our office chairs, from our bedrooms, and from our cars, and get to meet new people. I spoke in, 12, 13 countries as far as Vietnam from my swivel chair. I've been to Nepal. I've been to India. I've been all over the world, Sri Lanka, all over the world. And we can grow stronger together if we understand the power of what Toastmasters has to offer. So I want to encourage you who are watching this to ask yourself, what club can I visit in a different country? That'll give me an idea of what happened so I can understand the culture better. Because look at it this way, Patty, and I'll stop with this thought. If Toastmasters can be so universally accepting and cross our differences off and find out what we have in common, wouldn't it be awesome if the world's leaders could learn from us? Oh. Let's set the example of being stronger together, my fellow Toastmasters. Let's do that.
Amen. Amen. From your lips to God's ears. Yes, Mark. Yes, absolutely. Whew. And let me expand on this a little bit because that moved me so much that because I have a few family members that actually have degenerative diseases.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yes, it's something that we just have. It's just that's God's will. And I even lost my sister. Like it developed to the point that it's the first time I'm talking about this, and I think I'm safe enough to talk about this right now. Very briefly, just December the 29th, I just lost my sister, and from 30 years of suffering, basically, and it just moved me so much. So this is why I reacted this way this morning when I listened to this message. So, and this just reinforces for me the power of impact. And also yesterday, I was listening to your podcast with Darren, the Unforgettable presentation, and you just released an interview that you did with Rina Romano.
Yes.
And I was very busy. We're all very busy. I mean, there's so much content out there, amazing content from amazing speakers, and so many interviews. But of course, I mean, when I've interviewed people, I follow them closely. So I started listening to it. I said, let me just listen to the first 10 minutes and I'll continue eventually. And usually eventually, like I don't necessarily have the time, but I started watching it and it moved me so much, her story that I will not talk about, her story to tell, that I completely reshuffled my schedule. I had other stuff planned, but I just watched the entire interview, which was close to an hour. And then I watched her TED Talk, which was 15 minutes afterwards. That's how good and impactful, because her stories reminded me of certain unfortunate incidents that happened to me as a child. So, and of course, I reached out to her, and guess what? She'll be one of my guests on my show. You understand?
Wonderful. Excellent.
All this because you shared her story on your podcast. So, which brings me to ask you, what made you start this adventure with Darren, this podcast? And
well, I'll tell you what. You met Darren, and I will tell the world this. Darren's heart is bigger than Texas and California put together. And in 2019, he said, Mark, we need to do a podcast just to help more people, to expose them to good speakers so they can know what it means to be unforgettable and hopefully build our community as well. But we made that commitment in 2019. As a matter of fact, I gave a main stage presentation at the last Toastmasters in-person convention in Colorado in 2019. And I said, we're going to start the Unforgettable Presentations podcast. And we made a commitment to release a new episode every week. We have not missed a week since August of 2019. And the whole idea was just one, to be impactful, but two, to really help presenters to become good, to become great, and to be unforgettable. We had some big dreams to interview some big names. And anybody who follows the field of speaking will know names like Les Brown, Brian Tracy, Nido Cobain. We've had them all on our podcast. How do we even get Kendra Hall, the story expert? How do we get Erin King, the social media guru? But we get wonderful individuals who are professional, but we also get some touching stories as well. So the goal is to help people to grow and to become unforgettable. Little did we know, Patty, that this past year, our podcast was listed first in the top podcasts for presentations of 2021. There's also a group called Listen Score, and they track 2.8 million podcasts worldwide, and they ranked us in the top 1.5%. And it's a labor of love. It's not monetized. We don't have sponsors. It's just two guys who love to speak, who want to share what we have. And that's our heart. If we can have impact and do it genuinely, we don't make any money on this, but we do it every week because we truly want to help people. And that started with Darren LaCroix, my brother, and his vision of touching the world and making people and teaching people how to be unforgettable presenters. That's a backstory. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, that's so beautiful. And yes, I strongly encourage you to follow the podcast. If you're not doing so already at home, please, really, it's worth it.
Yes, and we're on several platforms. And if anybody wants to, identify Rena's podcast episode immediately, it's episode 103, A Story You Won't Forget, with Rina Romano, episode 103, right?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for this. So, Mark, as a speaker, what is your greatest fear, if I may ask?
That's a good question. My biggest fear, in all honesty, Patty, my biggest fear is having delivered a presentation and not leaving value, not having impact. My biggest fear is walking away from an assignment, walking away, especially a paid assignment, and feeling that the client did not get value for their money. And I would encourage anyone, you're Toastmasters, maybe you aren't going pro, but perhaps you'll get asked to give a talk one day and get compensated. Prepare, put your heart into it. Make every talk you give the best talk you ever gave. Every talk should be the best talk you ever gave. I don't want me or anybody else I know to ever leave a presentation and saying, I didn't deliver value, I didn't have an impact, and I wasted the audience's time. Because it happened to me when I went to give a speech once with the wrong motivation. I took an assignment only because I knew somebody famous was going to be there. And I used my yes as an opportunity to meet that person. And in the end, I met them for like 15 seconds as we were going to their car. We never got to talk the way I thought we would. And I didn't serve the audience well. And I vowed I would never, ever do that again. So the motivation has to be, I said earlier, why do I do it? I want to serve. I want to give value. So my fear, not having impact and not delivering value. And it is my hope that nobody who hears this will ever find themselves in a place where they said, I didn't have impact, I didn't give value. What do we do? Put the work in and serve our audiences.
Yes. Oh, thank you so much for this. Thank you so much, Mark. If our friend at home is filled with regrets and believes their life is an irreparable mess, hopeless mess, and what advice would you like to share with them right now, Mark?
I mean, hit the cross a line here, but that's okay, because there have been times I have felt I should have done better. I have made a mess of things, and that is part of the human condition. I'm no psychotherapist. I'm no psychoanalyst. I'm no psycho anything. I'm not a psycho, but I do know that it's normal to feel that way when things don't go well. I heard some wonderful advice from Tom Hanks, the actor, the famous actor. He says, if things go badly, remember, this too shall pass. When things go really, really well, this too shall pass. Because life is a journey of hills and valleys, ups and downs. One thing I do that helps me when I'm facing my lows is I rehearse, I recall, I remember the good things I've done, the lives I've touched, the people I've impacted. I remember the blessings I have received, and I remember the times I've been a blessing to others. If I could do it back then, I can do it again. I'll repeat that. If I could do it back then, I can do it again. And for me, and this is personal, I rely heavily upon my closest, my circle, my wife, my kids, dear friends to me, and also my faith. I'm a Christian by faith, and by no means do I want to tell anybody you must do what I do. I'm sharing with you how I was raised, what I grew up seeing, the blessings I've seen, the miracles I've seen, the healing I've received. So I lean heavily upon my faith, my Christian faith, upon my circle, which is very, very small, and upon the memory of what not only I have done, but what I believe God has done in my life before. And I hold on to the promise, if he can do it back then, he can do it again. If I can get through it back then, I can get through it again. That's where I am. And I also want to add one more thing. There is never shame in asking for help when you need it. Sometimes you may need somebody who's professional to counsel you, to walk with you through a difficult season, to advise you. You know, back in the day, the idea of going to a counselor or a therapist was, oh, you're crazy, you're losing your mind. Ooh, you're going to see a therapist? Ooh, what's wrong with you in therapy? But 21st century, we come to understand it's a good thing to have someone to talk to who is neutral, who can offer a perspective you often can't see because you're so close to it. You're in it. Your mind's in it. Choose your circle carefully, and don't be ashamed or afraid to ask for help when you need it. For me, I trusted my faith, and I also recall what happened in the past, and I look forward to seeing it again. That's what gets me through it. I hope you found a way to get yourself through difficult times, and I hope it's helpful to somebody out there right now who may be in a tough spot at this particular moment.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing those beautiful words of wisdom. Thank you.
My pleasure.
And one of my last question, what would be your best advice for someone who has a fear or a terror of public speaking, or doesn't see the value of joining Toastmasters or any kind of public speaking forum?
First of all, I don't believe there's a fear, any of us has a fear of public speaking. Let me clarify. I believe it's a fear of public embarrassment. It's a fear. Yeah, we have a fear. We don't want to be embarrassed. We think we're being physically judged, and sometimes we are. But if I don't do this well, they're going to see my hair, my clothes. And we think a failure to perform a task, we see it as a failure as a person. A failure at a task doesn't mean you're a failure. Just because you have failed doesn't make you a failure. I'll say it again. Just because you may have failed, it doesn't make you a failure. It means I didn't do that particular thing well on that particular day. It should not affect your character or your view of yourself. What's wonderful about Toastmasters is that Toastmasters is a welcoming environment because everyone there has been where you are, or almost everyone. Toastmasters embraces you. Toastmasters welcomes you. Toastmasters assigns a mentor to help you get through what you're concerned about, to walk with you, to look at your scripts, to test with you, to rehearse with you. You can simply begin to overcome the fear, not by talking to a mirror. A mirror is yourself, a reflection of yourself. But we speak every single day. All of us speak because we have conversations every single day. In our minds, when one becomes 10, the whole thing changes. But if I told you to give a little talk to a neighbor, to a friend, one-on-one, and with a hidden camera in the room, recorded you, and you watched yourself, you will see you are fine in conversation. I've had to learn to often treat my audience as a large group of people who are on my back porch at a barbecue having some fun, and I get to tell a story to them. I get to share an idea with them. I get to share a lesson that I learned with them. Conversationally, I don't see the audience as they don't want me to fail, because trust me, your audience does not want you to fail. They want you to succeed. And Toastmasters is a place where they will welcome you. They'll push you a little bit, but they'll guide you. They'll support you. They'll love on you. And I think, Patty, you had that experience yourself in Toastmasters.
Oh, yes.
And it literally transformed my life, because I was a kid, like I said, didn't have the college degree. There were times, Patty, I would not even go to lunch with my coworkers because they talk about college, the fun they had, the parties, the games, the tough professors. I did not share the experience. I'd make an excuse. Oh, guys, I'm late on the project. I got to go work on this. I could do it later, but no, I'll do it now because I didn't have to go hang out with them. I felt deficient. Trust me. Toastmasters helps you to build that confidence. You learn how to speak extemporaneously, how to answer questions in public, how to respond in a business meeting when you've been there for the last 2 months, you didn't say anything, and all of a sudden the boss says, hey, Mark, what do you think about that? You learn how to respond calmly and compose yourself. It's a wonderful, loving, friendly environment to help you and me to overcome our concerns, our fear of public embarrassment, and all of that. So I encourage you, if you're hearing this for the first time, you've heard about Toastmasters, but you weren't sure, visit a club and see what it had in store for you. It changed my life, and I'm telling you, it can change yours as well. And please don't ever be afraid to share your message. As Patty said earlier, your life tells a story, and there's someone out there who needs to hear it.
Yes, you said it so much better than me. Thank you for doing it.
Pleasure.
So finally, if someone in the audience would like to know more about you or would like to book you for a consultation or to inspire and motivate their corporations, what is the best way to reach you, Mark?
Well, my website is best. It is markbrownspeaks.com. That's the website. My name, what I do. My email is mark@markbrownspeaks.com. If you're concerned about becoming a better speaker and you want to invest in private coaching, you can always go to the site. You can contact me there. You can email me through the site itself, or you can send me an email. We can arrange for, a consultation, free, 15 minutes, just kind of talk and see where you are, what you want to do. And there's also on my site a page, a subpage. It's executive-coaching. So it's markbrownspeaks.com/executive-coaching. It lists options there for coaching, for consultations, for longer-term programs. I could even review a script if you want, or review a video if you want. So there are options where you can work with me if you choose. But I would love to talk to you first. So shoot me an email. We'll arrange a short call free of charge, or we can just talk if that serves you as well. And if you want to refer me to a company or corporation, that's also an easy way to get hold of me. My social media, I'm on LinkedIn, Mark Brown CSP. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter as Mark L. Brown or Mark Brown Speaks. I'm on Instagram as well. And I'm twiddling with TikTok now. I'm not quite sure how to work that thing, but I'll work it out. But certainly you can, I'm highly Googleable. if you Google Mark Brown speaker, all the options will show up there as well. So
yes, wonderful. Thank you
Pleasure.
so much. And of course,
Oh, thank you.
been displayed on the screen. My dear friend, my main takeaways are the following.
Yeah.
Number one, share stories to provide value and create an emotional connection with the audience. Two, choose your circle carefully and seek help if you need to. And three, just because you have failed, it does not mean that you are a failure.
Yes, excellent.
So this is what really stuck with me. Are there any parting words or last story you'd like to share with us before we let our friends go?
I will say this. On your journey to become an excellent presenter, learn all you can. Keep track of your experiences, what I call a story file. You may have heard Darren LaCroix talk about this. And surround yourself with individuals who can help you grow, can help you become better as a presenter. You know how to get hold of me. And as Patty told you, Darren LaCroix and I work together quite a bit. And his program is called Stage Time University. That is a community of speakers from all over the world who get together every week. We have online programs. We have weekly coaching calls with live coaching. And I'm on the coaching staff. So I'm there 2 out of 4 Wednesdays every week at Stage Time University to help, again, everyone learn some key techniques. We dive deep, we dig deep. We have very technical ways to become better presenters. We also do live events, 3-day events. One starts tomorrow, actually, called Get Coached to Speak. So there's several ways you can grow as a presenter if you work with me or with Darren LaCroix. We'd love to serve you. But even if not, even if you don't, I would say one thing. If you're serious about growing as a speaker, find someone to work with. Get a coach. It need not be me, but get someone who you trust, with whom you have a good relationship, who can help you to develop the skills, not just to be a better presenter as a construct, but to be a better presenter, to have greater impact, and to leave greater value.
Yes. What a pleasure it has been to talk with you, Mark. Thank you so much.
The honor is mine. Thank you.
May God continue to bless you exponentially.
And you as well.
Thank you so much. And at home, or at work, wherever you are, thank you so much for watching. I hope you feel encouraged to never give up chasing your dreams, even if you're starting with $40 in your pockets.
That's right. Just pursue excellence. That's it. Pursue excellence.
And I will leave you with this: the power of your voice can change the world. Find it and use it. Until next time. Bye. Bye, Mark.
Bye.